Welcome to the Changemaker's Corner, powered by Fuel, an interview series spotlighting different grassroots leaders, social impact innovators, and young changemakers across Toronto and the GTA. At Changemaker's Corner, we pull back the curtain on changemaking work, shine a light on the realities of the social impact sector, and reimagine a better future for meaningful and authentic change in our communities. Learn more about Fuel at fuelchange.org and on social media at Fueling Changemakers. The YAC edition with none other than Jesse, poet and member of the Youth Advisory Committee at Fuel. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing great, Patrick.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Cool, good. I'm gonna kind of like shift a little bit, so we're not look like we're just have like a real conversation.
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
Yeah, cool. How you feeling, Jesse? You good?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. Traffic was a little bit hectic coming off of the 401, but hey, we're here and we're doing this.
Yeah,
Really
that's the nature of doing work in Toronto / the GTA.
True.
I get it. Thanks for sitting down and having a conversation with me. I have a few questions, really quick interview, but I just wanted to like introduce you to the Fuel community, but also talk a little bit more about your change-making work. And so let's just like start with that. Like, tell me about your change-making journey. What does that look like for you? How did that start for you? Yeah.
I think for me, which is similar to like a lot of people, I think it just started by being in community. And so like, for me, I didn't seek out to be a change maker at first. I didn't even know what that was. I just wanted to be in community. You know, I moved into Canada in 2018, so everything was just totally new to me. So I just wanted to find community where I felt comfortable and safe and like vulnerable, but also willing to grow. So me being a nerd, I went to the library first, and then that's where I met you, obviously, through TPL, Toronto Public Library, and Poetry Saves Our Lives program. So being in that community kind of just helped me kind of grow myself as an artist, which was what I was seeking to do at first. And, you know, it was a gradual process. It was very slow, but it was also very fulfilling. And then pivoting in 2020, because of the pandemic, to online resources, you know, online programs and workshops, I went into like different nonprofit organizations and art organizations, you know, like Unity Charity and JAYU, and I just found myself being more and more of a participant, and I was growing more and more as an artist, which is what I initially wanted. And I had found a community, a very vibrant, a very welcoming, and a very talented community, but I also found myself being involved in like programs like proper, like actually being like a poet and a participant, but also growing into more of a program advisor or a junior mentor position, especially with like JAYU. And I found that like that also fulfilled the part of what I was seeking in community, because it wasn't just about taking, it was also about giving back. And I think for me, that's where I find myself best as a change maker, is finding those spaces where it's possible to just branch out and see what I can give, as well as see what I can learn in order to grow as a person and as a community member and as an advisor and all that.
Well, welcome to the Youth Advisory Committee. You haven't been here you're one of the newest members of the...
I think I might be the newest member.
You are the newest member of the Fuel YAC, and we're really happy to have you.
Thank you.
And you said something really interesting, and I think, and that's why I kind of just wanted to bring it up, but like when you talk about being part of community and like finding that, you said that you wanted to find a place where you could, you know, give as well as receive. Yeah. And there's that kind of natural, like the reciprocal aspect of being part of a community. And I think some people, when they join communities, maybe they're thinking, you know, all I want is to get something. I want learning, I want resources, I want to get something. But like giving was also a part of how you feel comfortable in a community. Can like where did that come from? Why did you, you know?
I think for me that came from a sense of personal, professional, and also just communal. In the sense of like personal, like I'm lucky to be to have been raised by parents that like instilled a sense of giving, which is just like, you know, give twice what you've gotten. And I think that's just a good rule of thumb to have as a person. But also like professionally, it was in the sense of like, I was getting opportunities to do shows and events and projects from people that were willing to take a chance on me, where it's like I did not have, I mean, I showed my stuff in workshop and, you know, sharing and learning and also improving through that. But it wasn't like, it's not like a thing where it's like that immediately leads to chances. It was very clear that like I was going through some projects due to the fact that someone who was either a project advisor or the founder of the project themselves just took a chance on me, just wanted me to just go out there and try and put what I'd learned into something more concrete. And that was such an eye-opening experience for me, to see people that I admire just going out of their way to just put me in those positions. I think of people that we know mutually, like the Desiree McKenzie's of the world, the Joshua Squite Watkins of the world, the Dwayne Morgans of the world, and just kind of being able to kind of like take that into consideration and see how I could do the same thing for other people, where it's like I might not be putting on projects right now, but like if I am in a semi-senior role, how can I help people kind of like get to where they need to be in terms of what they're looking for? Because some people are not just looking to do this professionally. Some people are just looking for an escape. And some people are just looking for ways to kind of find their own people. And what was interesting for me was like kind of juggling all of that, just being able to understand that like that's where the communal aspect bleeds into everything, where it's like some people just want a community, because Toronto's a big city and it's not so big that you can lose yourself, but it is big enough to get lost in. And so that feeling of being lost and being lonely, it can kind of permeate through everything that we enjoy. And so it's just better to find a community that can corral you back and just show you that kind of love and tolerance, but also that kind of artistic side that you're looking to foster. And that's where that became more important for me in sense of giving.
Amazing. I think I have a couple more questions. I think is a good segue actually. So you mentioned like, an artistic way. I think oftentimes I'm noticing this in the arts world, in the arts community in Toronto. I mean, particularly where we work in like poetry, but also just like the broader space of art in Toronto. There's a lot of intersections between art and social impact work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of that's like an organic thing, at least for me, like I just wanted to like share art, but then you start working in community and hearing stories about other people's experiences and how like society and oppressive forces have kind of like inspired some of their work, and then you kind of naturally find yourself in sometimes of like an advocacy role where now you're using your art to kind of talk about wider issues in the world or in our community or in society. Like, what was that for you? Was it also like, how did you find yourself into the space of social impact work or advocacy from just art itself? Like, how did that intersect for you? How did what does that mean to you?
Well, I think a lot of where that comes from is kind of understanding from the get-go that art is inherently a political experience. And it's not just a political experience in the sphere of which we think of society to understand politics, but it's also political because it is a deeply human experience. And if you want your art to sing, it has to come from deep within what you understand of the world and what you understand of yourself. And I think that immediately puts you in an advisor, like not in an advisory role, but as an advocate. It makes you an advocate of your own work. It makes you an advocate of your own experience. And when you start sharing that in community, you find that a lot of people are drawn to your experience because they have similar experiences as well. And you then want to feel like you want to advocate for them. And so it's not something that is completely inescapable, even though that might not be the intention going in. Because I can definitely say that going in, I was like, 16? I was definitely not thinking of advocacy going into when I was like going into like the Toronto Public Library and just being like, I wanted to write poems. But I also knew that like the poems that I was writing, they were talking about my experience as a Black man. They were talking about my experience as a recent immigrant to Canada, of my experiences back home in Nigeria. And so they were not avoidable. They were not inescapable. They were just part of who I am. It's not like they were doled out in terms of like, I'm trying to get you to get sympathy for me. I'm trying to get you to understand my experiences. I'm just saying them as they are. But you start to understand that as a human experiences, there are some ways in which our society falters, and that only kind of bolsters your desire to kind of talk about these things. and not just about the things that you've experienced, but the kind of world you want your art to be fostered in. I want my art to kind of be fostered in a more tolerant world, in a more forgiving world, in a more loving world. And the only way that can happen is not just by considering the impacts of art and fiction and the reality and how they intersect, but also consider the actual grassroots on the ground work that needs to be put in. And I think that this community has one of the most vibrant spaces for that. And if you've been in Toronto, this is going to be a quick segment. If you've been in Toronto, you kind of understand how the art scene in a more governmental or more organizational role kind of runs counter to the smaller grassroots. Like it's like you're running against one gridlock after another gridlock. And so you kind of understand quickly that these things need to be communal, these things need to be developed, and these things need to be cherished right now and then. And so there's a sense of urgency that comes in, and it's not an oppressive urgency, it's an urgency that comes from your desire to want to give back and love people. And that's the greatest kind of urgency that I think art can give you. It's the sense of like, you have something to give to this world, not just from what your expression is, but from what you want other people to have in this space. I think that's something that artistic intent has given me.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. That was a great answer. And yeah, I'm trying not to hide like my proud dad face that I can give.
I think you need to see Patrick's dad.
It's just like, yes, you know, and again, I think some people do kind of enter the world with intentions of like, I want to have like, you know, inspire positive change in my community, and that could just be their intent off the jump. But there's something so beautiful about like being just a young artist who just wants to share, but then talking about your environment and then identifying structures that work against you or your community, and then naturally getting to this place where you want to dismantle them by using your art or whatever other resources you have. Like, I think that journey is so beautiful, and it's very organic. Like a lot of the time, a lot of the people in our community didn't feel like they wanted to go in stages and talk about these things that and like challenge the status quo, but they just find themselves there. And I think that's beautiful, but it also says a lot about what the actual true needs in our community are.
And I think it's something that people need to consider. It's like, it's not a new thing. And that's also important. That's like there are foundations that are older than most societies where these urges to kind of put art to action come from. There are a lot of books, there are a lot of authors, there are a lot of elders, there are a lot of communal spaces back from, like, again, especially if you're part of a diaspora, there are spaces already that have always been there. And we have written, we have oral, we have history that can guide you if you feel afraid or if you feel like this is a too big a venture to go onto. Because it's when you're in that space of advocacy, everything tends to be the biggest picture possible. And I get it, and I understand the importance of that. But historically, this has always been a very long step, and the arc of justice to get to that point, to get to that world, is even longer. So you need to take it step by step. You need to consult the history that has been there before you, and you also need to take it upon yourself to understand that, like, this is a long walk, and it's okay to like stumble a bit. It's okay that you are going to be frail and you're going to be vulnerable, and it's going to seem murky at best. But at the same time, that's why you have community, that's why you build community, and that's part of where this newness comes in. That your actions are building this new strands of community that can help you when you stumble, that can help you when you need to reconcile history of then with the uncertainty of now. And I think that's where a lot of the communal artistic intent and world building, that's how it gets together. That's how it stays together. I think it's important.
Did you like rehearse this?
No, dude, I just came in.
Yeah.
I just came in after sitting on the 401 for 40 minutes.
I don't know if you were in the car being like, okay, this is a good talking.
No, I was in the car being like TikTok. I'm gonna be real with you.
No, I know you did it. I have a couple more questions for you, Jesse, then we'll wrap it up. Again, the last thing you said is kind of like really inspiring, kind of like my flow questions, because I have a good segue. So 2 more questions.
Sure.
So your change-making journey now, where you're at, like, talk about some of the obstacles you may have faced. You mentioned a lot of things too, about being frail, about being tired, about committing to this lifelong journey of change making, but then realizing that you need space to rest, that you've maybe even like experienced burnout for yourself. And so what are some obstacles you faced in your change making journey?
I think one of those things especially is like the understanding of expectations versus reality, and how that could create such an intense backlash for yourself, where you feel like you had all these big ambitions. Maybe you are in a situation or community or a nonprofit organization, and you've come up with a project and you've put your heart and your soul into it, and it just didn't go the way that you expected. And you understand that there are ramifications for that. Maybe it's funding, maybe it's the amount of people that you're taking into this kind of communal space being less than you thought it would be. And that can be disheartening, because the backlash of the internal disappointment is oftentimes not bettered by the disappointment of the outer space, the real world, where things happen and a lot of it is messed up and sad and disheartening, especially for people who are of minority groups or queer communities and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of that I've seen personally, I felt personally, where it's like, it's just like a mad scramble to try to get like grants to go through, or try to get sponsorships to go through, and trying to get people to care. Because I think that one of the things about places like this, cities like this, is that even though we do have a vibrant community, a lot of times we are beset either by the society we live in or the situational circumstances that we find ourselves, by an apathy that is hard to kill. That is hard to kill, and that is hard to reverse. And it takes a lot for, especially for young people. I know that for myself, it took a long while to get to the stage where it was like, I am no longer apathetic to the things that bother me. And I seek to find a way to kind of express my discontent. It is hard. It is a hard road to get there. It is a harder road to express, and it is the hardest road to just keep on going. And I think that for me, I often find myself on the back foot of that, where it's like, this isn't working, everything's messed up, oh my God, I just want to lie down for a week, and it ends up being a month. All right, and it's just something where it's like, yes, I need rest, but rest and lethargy are 2 different things. And that's like one situational thing, where it's like, another situational thing is just like, sometimes there are bad actors. Sometimes there are people with bad faith that take what you want to do, or what you plan on doing, or good intentions and good actions, and twist them, because either they have similar intentions, but they're just going about it the wrong way, or they don't have great intentions, or simply can't help but kind of recontextualize everything that you're trying to do to break away from what you're looking to change back into the society that started the problem in the first place. And there are many reasons for people doing this. Profit is one of them. Status quo, appreciation of status quo is another one of them. And it's hard, because some of those people could be your friends. Some of those people could be people that you grew up with. Some of those people could be people that you've admired from a distance for so long. And having those kind of conversations are not easy. It's not like I'm going around having them, but it's like I've had 1 or 2 conversations, and I've just gone home and I've just been like, why do any of this if this was the end point of it? It's like, why bother? Yeah. It's just like, I wish I never embarked on this. But I think in both situations, it's going back to the question of why'd you do it in the first place? Did you do it because you wanted to feel good about yourself at the end of it? Did you do it because you thought everything would be rosy and full of like, everyone would be smiling and it'd just be happy, positive, go lucky vibes all the way through? Or did you do it because you knew it would be hard work and you knew that the work would be worth it, because even if it was just one singular person that you helped, then that would be worth it. And then that's the metric I found myself sticking to whenever I had those problems, where it's like, yeah, this is bad. Yes, this didn't go the way that it went to. Yes, we probably won't have funding for this thing next time, but if there's something that we can do in the meantime to help one person, because if you can just help one person, save one person, or even try to help one person, that's worth it. The energy put in is worth it, because there is no measure to the life of a person. There is no measure to the potential of a person. There's only the gratitude and the act of love of trying to care for one person, and knowing that that could be enough in a person's life to change the entire trajectory of how they were feeling about themselves that day, that month, or the entirety of their lives. You have no idea. I know for me, coming into a whole new society where I didn't know anything, where everything was just completely different than the way I lived before for the past 16 years of my life, I understood myself to be in isolation, to be different, to be other. And when you were put in that place, that position of other, you look everywhere to just try and find a place that you belong, or where things make sense. And I know that when I came to TPL, that eventful day, and I got to sit down and I just got to write and share poems, and it wasn't anything spectacular. Kids, we were not saving the world in that room. we were not plotting ways to do anything useful in that room other than writing. I'm gonna be real with you. We were not plotting to do anything other than just like write, express, and be dumb. Just be dumb kids who had a lot of emotions, and give it to this older yet also very childish man who we entrusted with these emotions. And it ended up being the start of a long trajectory for me. And I know that it's giving me the most positive impact because I'm older, I'm wiser, but I'm also more empathetic. I'm also more caring. And it has become the greatest source of joy in my life. And from where I started to where I am now is such a huge gap. But that was not the intention that Pat had when he came in. That's not the intention anyone has when they start something like this. But if you can just do it for one person, you will never know how far that can go. So you just gotta keep on pushing. You take the time to rest, you take the time to grieve, you take the time to heal, but don't let that time be wasted being lethargic, being apathetic, or being hateful. Because that just ruins anything that you wanted more than the bad actors could or the disappointments could ever try to do. I think that's important.
So yeah, thank you for that. I had one last question, and just tell us a little bit about being on the Youth Advisory Committee for Fuel, about the Fuel community, what it feels like to be a part of it, how it may have helped you on your change-making journey.
Well, as Pat said at the onset, I am the newest member, so a lot of things I am still trying to figure out my way around, still trying to learn about, still trying to understand like the programs and what we're doing. But I will say from the onset being brought into the Youth Advisory Committee, it was something where it was like, I have rarely been so impressed by a group of people that come from just different walks of life, but are dedicated to coming together and figuring out either it's programs or it's just ways of thinking about the way we organize programs that show their investment, not just because of their lived experiences, but because of their yearning to kind of do better for other people, whether it's like the fund or the trusts or the retreats and the Breaking Bread kind of like get-togethers that we had. We had one quite recently that I thought went incredibly well. And a part of being in community, outside of just getting to meet these impressive people that are either working on these programs right now or are planning them for the near future, is kind of seeing the dedication that brings people together. Because I feel like that's also something that's underrated within community. Dedication goes a long way, but communal dedication it's like its own immovable force, where it's like you can only just watch it go where it needs to go. And I've it's always been a positive, reinvigorating space, being there and being like, well, this is what we're thinking about doing. About we might not necessarily be on the same page. We might bicker for a little bit, just being like, are we sure we want to do this? Are we sure we can do it like this? Are we sure we want to bring this into consideration? But I remember it was like August or so, and we were talking about this specific program, this Changemakers Corner, and talking about people that we wanted to bring in, and talking about what that would even look like filming, and how would any of this look? And we're doing it right now, right? And it's an amazing feeling, just being like, we were so excited on like a virtual setting. I'm talking to Pat, he's talking to me, and we're spitballing ideas, and just being here and having this be an actual breathing thing where we can give it out to a community and watch someone, maybe if even one person sees this and just being like, okay, I think I have an idea. Maybe I'll bring it to Fuel. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do something else on my own, and that people would come and see. That's something that is inspiring for me, and I think it's a hard thing to find within an organization, where it's like not only just thinking about like pie in the sky, kind of like what we want to do long term, but also think about the short term things and put them into action and know that like they can make a tangible difference. And so I am appreciative of the YAC, the Youth Advisory Committee, because it's just a bunch of talented individuals coming together to make the most beautiful kind of community that they can, and being kind of like spearheaded by like people that like trust us to try and do this, even if it can lead in disappointment. Just that trust is important, that dedication is important, and I think Fuel we have a long way to go, but we are taking that walk, and we're walking confidently, and I think that's important as well.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank you.
Poet, member of the Youth Advisory Committee, sitting down for Changemakers Corner. That concludes our episode with Jesse at the YSC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Peace.
Peace.